Hello. It looks like I'm live. Welcome to the live stream about Muntlig Norskprøve. The exam week is coming close, but whether or not it is your turn this time to take the exam, I think this is very, very useful to know and to make yourself familiar with, because it might save you a lot of trouble, a lot of stress as well, a lot of time, I dare argue, because if you know what you are preparing for when you're preparing for the exam, it's gonna be much easier to get yourself ready and to get yourself there. So without any further ado, let's jump in. I have 3 areas I would like to go through today. The first one, I would like to talk you through the difference between proficiency testing, which is what Norskprøve and exams like that are all about, and on the other hand, progress testing, which is something you know from school and from your courses and what you've been doing mostly, I'm guessing. So this is different, and the prep process for both is also different ultimately. So that's one area that we will start with to kind of define what kind of exam Norskprøve actually is, what it's trying to test, what its purpose is as well, and why it is so. Then the other area, I will show you some of the criteria, and we will focus on the muntlig, on the oral part of the test, because going through the whole exam would take us the whole day. It's kind of intricate. There's a lot of time and thought put into this, even though it sometimes doesn't look like that. But you can rest assured that exams like that are kind of it takes a long time to develop these, right? So there's a lot to be said about the design and why it is designed in that way. Sometimes things don't turn out as they were intended, right? We all know that, but the design is kind of intricate. So we won't be talking about all the parts. We'll focus on the muntlig, because that's what most of my students are interested in. That's the most typical Norskprøve prep student that I work with, is somebody who wants to pass the B1 muntlig. So if that's you as well, you are on the perfect place, because we will focus on the requirements for B1 muntlig. I will explain the system showcasing these, but of course I'm going to show you a document that you can also download from the website of Kompetanse Norge and read through it, and the document contains all levels, the distinctions between all levels. So if you're heading for a higher level or for a lower level than B1, you will find everything in that schema. And what I'm going to say about B1 is going to help you navigate the other levels as well. But to kind of save time and to be more efficient today, I won't be dragging you through all the levels. I'll focus on the B1 muntlig, which is the one that's most on demand, where I am, right? And then the third part of the stream will be answering your questions. If you are here live and you already have some questions, please put them in, whether you're watching on LinkedIn, on YouTube, or on Facebook. I'm streaming to all of these. So you can just write a comment under the live stream. And if the technical side is working well, I should see all the questions. I'm going to tackle them at the end. So get ready and put them in. And I also have some questions that people sent me beforehand, so I will take those first, and then I will take all the questions that are coming. So don't be shy, put your question in straight away, because I'm restricted on time today, so I'm gonna take those that are at the top first, right? I'm gonna reply to all questions, but I might not have time to do yours during the stream, if there are many. We will see how many there are. Okay. So let's jump straight in and let's talk about proficiency testing. So proficiency, if you say that somebody is proficient, you are talking about a very high level, a professional level, right? But proficiency as such is a word for any level of proficiency. So that's kind of tricky in this context, right? Proficiency in other contexts might mean almost perfection. Men. But in terms of testing and language testing in particular, when we speak about proficiency, it means we are speaking about the level on which you are able to function in the language. So you can have A1 proficiency, right? And A1 is, of course, the beginner level, so it's not very proficient, but we talk about it as proficiency. Yeah? So which level of proficiency are you on? A1 or B2 or whatever it might be. So that's what proficiency means in this particular context. And testing proficiency is, of course, tricky. The other kind of testing that is commonly used, and more commonly, I would say, in our school systems and in the courses, is what's called progress testing. And progress testing is basically just going through some material in class and then sitting a test in the class to see whether or not, or to which degree, you have covered that particular material. So a progress test would be relatively easy, or in any case simple, to study for. This is your vocabulary, and the test is on Friday, right? If you cram all that vocabulary and you know it, then you will ace the test on Friday. So it's kind of straightforward, it's very simple, and I dare argue that the most tests you've ever written in your life were progress tests. And of course, if you just match definitions to vocabulary, or if you fill in grammar exercises on the grammar you did in class the week before, that's a very simple format. You can have more complex formats, such as essay writing on a given topic or whatever, but it's always something that's pertinent to what you did in class before. So it's kind of to check that you've been a good student, right? So that's progress testing. But proficiency testing should be disconnected from any class content whatsoever. So whether or not you've attended a course, whether or not you've used a textbook, you sit the same test, the proficiency test, say Norskprøve, and the result should kind of be, it should be comparable across the board, right? Whichever way you studied in, or even if you never studied and you just picked the language up, you will be assessed on the same categories, but there is never, ever, there shouldn't be in any case, and in case of Norskprøve there isn't, there should not be any concrete list of vocabulary items that you have to cover. Obviously, you're expected to be able to function in terms of everyday topics. So if you don't know any words for any foods and any clothes and any means of transport and anything, then probably you won't pass the B1, because these are everyday contexts. But there is no list of, like, you didn't know this word, then you cannot be on B1 level. It's not like that. And this is surprising for many people, it's the same with grammar. We imagine, and this is very natural given the fact that we've written so many progress tests in our life, and that's how we've been kind of educated to think about learning. But we feel that the kind of grammar that was featured in the textbook, which has the level on the cover that I want to pass, right? We feel that I have to cover all that grammar and nail it so that I can be on that level. So for example, people feel that, all right, this thing with adjectives, right? I still can't remember, or I don't know when I should put the extra T on the adjective. The problem is not the adjective, of course, but the problem is that you don't know which gender the noun is and all that stuff. This is very late acquired, but it is featured usually somewhere on the borderline of A1 and A2 in textbooks, right? Usually already in the A1 section, this grammar is featured. It's because it's relatively easy to explain when you still don't know much vocabulary, right? This is the order of introduction of things in textbooks, which if you look at different textbooks, you will see that the order is pretty similar. The logic behind this is teaching convenience. It doesn't mean anything about which level the grammar pertains to, because, as I'm speaking about, proficiency is about your ability to function with the language, understand, speak, make yourself understood, come across in a certain way. And obviously, with increasing levels, increasing accuracy in both grammar and vocabulary usage will be expected, definitely. But it's not like you forget the T on the adjective, or you can't remember which gender the noun is, and you cannot pass B1 because this was introduced already in A1, right? It's not like that at all. The only danger might be, and I've met this in the past, but not much, the only danger might be if like the connection between various pieces of grammar, like in concrete terms, as in this is A2 grammar, I'm making air quotes here, this is B1 grammar, right? If this lives in the censor's head. Yeah, and this might happen, that somebody has this simplistic understanding of, all right, this person knows about this grammar, doesn't know about that grammar, means at this level, because the textbooks are kind of imprinted in your brain as a teacher. Yeah, I haven't seen this happen much at all, but I would say this is the only danger, that somebody would feel that, oh, if you make a mistake with this particular thing, it cannot be that level. But in reality, and if somebody is a censor at Norskprøve, they have probably a lot of experience. These are people who are well trained and have a lot of experience, even though they would sometimes disagree with each other in borderline cases, obviously. But they do have a lot of experience with assigning levels. So what the accuracy in vocabulary and grammar, what that is about, is the degree. So you want to see that these pieces of grammar that are essential to make yourself properly understood, or to come across as an educated speaker, or as an efficient speaker, let's say. It's more about efficiency than about being educated, unless you get high up to the C levels, right? So if they see that you at least have a variation in these essential areas, then they will consider you for that level, right? So if you take Varpo plus 2 as an example, which we could, on a certain level, if we took it simplistically, consider to be A1 grammar, making air quotes, right? Because it's introduced in the first unit of the first the first part of the first unit of the first course, yeah, at A1. But if people sit the exam and they have a good shot at B2 level, they still have typically variation with Varpo plus 2. It's something that's difficult to acquire. So acquire means to get it in your blood and to use it automatically without thinking. That's acquisition. That's your ultimate goal with all language learning, not learning or understanding, not just, but acquisition. But acquisition cannot be pushed as easily as cramming can be, right? So whether or not you have acquired it is partially outside of your power, which is on one hand frustrating, but on the other hand, it makes a lot of sense if you think of it like that. You have these hard cookies. It might be Varpo plus 2, it might be something else. For many people, it's the gender of nouns, because there is no rule to it, and you get a certain feel for it between the B2 and C1 level, somewhere there. You start to really kind of feel it in your gut that, like, I'm not sure which gender this word is, but it feels like an intentionsord, right? But this doesn't happen at A1 level when this is introduced. So I hope I'm making sense here. Drop me a line happily. Let me know if you understand what I'm saying, if it makes sense, or if you want to ask about anything else, if you want me to reiterate or deepen on something, or if you have questions about Norskprøve, right? Let me know in the comments. Okay, now let's move on to what you are being tested on in Norskprøve. Because I said that in a progress test, which is a normal test in your class, for example, you have vocabulary about clothes, and then you have this test where you have to match the vocabulary to pictures and put it in a text and whatever to check if you have learned the vocabulary, right? You can forget the vocabulary the next day. It doesn't matter, because the test is only on Wednesday. So it's this kind of test. And this is very easy to understand like what the success criterion is, right? If you cram the vocabulary, if you remember all of it, then you will get the high score. So everybody is in a way happy because we don't have this uncertainty. We know exactly what will be tested on and how. The problem with this, of course, is that success on these tests doesn't necessarily correlate with success in using the language. And the exact point of this thing being easy to set up and easy to cram for, and it really is no guarantee that it will work. Yeah, so the thing that's being measured is kind of artificial and small. So we cannot use tests like these when we want to measure how well this person is likely to function with the language. That's why we have to use a more complex testing format. And in proficiency tests, one thing, and I got a question about that as well, so I'm going to answer it as I go here. One thing that should be missing from proficiency testing is explicit grammar exercises. And the reason for this is just what I was saying, that no particular piece of grammar should be assigned to any particular level. It's about the degree, it's about how useful this grammar is in order to make yourself understood, to understand, and to come across as a speaker at a certain level. So you do need the grammar, but it can be a bit more random. It's not like you have to cover from unit 1 through 7 to be able to pass. It's not like that, yeah? So if you have set a test which had an explicit grammar exercise, like for example, parsetninger. So you have a sentence and you have to reformulate the sentence starting in a different way, and you're being tested on explicit grammar. So there are particular grammar points that the designer of the test is checking if you can use in that way. That is not proficiency testing as such, or it's an old-fashioned idea about it. So these formats are used in some tests out of which you can get a level, typically the TRIN exams that universities would set up. But the TRIN exams, they are set up separately by each university. So and they are a bit more academic, and they do yield a level evaluation at the end. But you might also know, if you've applied for citizenship or anything like that, that if you have your evaluation from the TRIN examen, it's a bit more tricky to make that work as your official level, right? So if you have the level from Norskprøve, you go the direct way. If you have it from TRIN, from the TRIN examen, you have to take a little digression with that, because it's a bit less of a proficiency test than Norskprøve is. And that's just because there is this pensum thing involved. You have the textbook to study, and you know that it's going to be there. And you also know there are going to be explicit grammar exercises. And that's not what you would expect in a proficiency test. This is also one of the reasons. There were many reasons, obviously, but you might know that the exam Bergenstesten, that used to be quite popular for the high levels, it's now shut down. And that's partially because Norskprøve C1 was developed. So when they were done with developing Norskprøve C1, then they shut down Bergenstesten. It happened a few years ago. And I was not involved in the process, so I'm guessing here, but I'm guessing that one of the reasons why they decided to go for Norskprøve C1 and shut down Bergenstesten, where you could get C1 if you got bestått, is that this was an old-fashioned exam format which featured an enormous explicit grammar testing part. And again, this is not something that has so much to say about your actual proficiency level. This shows that you are a good linguist if you are able to perform that well, that you got bestått in that proficiency test in Bergenstesten. Then obviously that shows that you have very good understanding. But if at the same time you kind of shut down and can't speak and can't use any of that in speaking, which some people have this problem, then the fact that you're a good linguist doesn't help you function with the language, right? So proficiency tests should not include enormous explicit grammar parts. The way grammar typically is included in tests like Norskprøve is that if your level is a bit higher in the exam, then in the reading part, you will get exercises with drop-down menus throughout the text, and you have to make choices. And some of these are vocabulary choices. Some of these are grammar choices. Like, do you need the bestemt form or ubestemt, whatever? It might be different things. And this, you could say, is explicit grammar testing, but it's included in the context of the text. So they show you the whole text and they ask you, okay, in this text, what would be the correct thing to say, right? But they don't have you write down sentences in the grammar part, yeah, or the grammar part in the reading part. There is no grammar part in Norskprøve, yeah. So this is very important to bear in mind. And obviously, you are tested on grammar in speaking and in writing. But again, this is a more complex testing situation where the sensor has space to see things in a 3D picture, to see how they work together, rather than, okay, this person has spent a lot of time cramming these derfor and fordi parsetninger. You can cram for this, right? You know what to expect. You see that there is this structure which triggers the answer, and you can be completely useless as a speaker if I say it in that way, but you have crammed for the parsetning format, right? So that's why you will not find it. And one of the other reasons also is that if you have things like parsetning and whatnot, where the candidate writes in something, then you have to check this manually, and that would be a lot of burden, right? And you would wait for your results for 2 years and not 6 weeks or whatever it is now. So the writing now, your written texts are evaluated manually. So 2 people typically have to sit down and evaluate it and come to the same conclusion. I'm not sure how this is done at Norskprøve, but this is the typical thing, that more than one person would evaluate the same text so that it's more objective, because obviously this is subjective. If you are well placed within the level, then everybody will come to the same result. But if you are on the borderline between the levels, then it's kind of good to have more people to have a look at it. But like I'm saying, I don't know how this is evaluated in Norskprøve. But I know it's a typical format that more sensors would look at the text and agree on the level. And this, of course, is why you are waiting for your results for that long, because they allow the results to go out all at the same time. And what everybody's waiting for is the writing. It's the writing that takes a long time to correct. If you introduce a lot of things like parsetninger into the, I don't know where they would put it, in the reading part, maybe in Norskprøve, right? Then you would again have to have people who sit down and do this manually, because there are always options and you can make a stupid typo that, so you cannot correct this automatically. And if you've ever said Norskprøve before, that the reading test and the listening test, that all of these are automatic correction tasks. Yeah, so that's another thing. If you have drop-down menus in a text, you can correct automatically. If you had people write in, like parsetninger or some grammar exercises, you would have to correct manually, and it would be a lot of burden. Yeah, so that's another reason, more practical, why this is not done in the Norskprøve exam. All right, so I hope this makes sense. I'm now going to share this document. You can let me know in the comments if you've seen it before. I hope that you have seen it before, because if you're prepping for Norskprøve, this is the first thing you should look at. Not your textbook, but this, because this shows you what the evaluation criteria are. And this is not some secret document I shouldn't be showing you. This is publicly available at the website of Kompetanse Norge, so kompetansenorge.no, and these are the evaluation criteria for the Muntlig. So if we have a look at it, you see that this is the descriptions for A1 and A2. So this first sheet is for the censor. And the censor, when you sit the exam, the censor has this sheet in front of them, and they are putting crosses. For example, here, it says under A1. So they would put a cross here if they thought that you performed even below the A1 criterion. And then here, if it was A1, and here on the side, because I made it bigger so that you can see it. So the other box is somewhere here or here, yeah, if it's A2. Let's have a look at the A2B1, because this is what most of my students are interested in. And by the way, if I work with a student on Norskprøve prep, this is the first thing that I show them. Oh, somebody's writing the document is not visible. Let me know, you others, guys, if you can see it, because I can see it here. I'm gonna try to take it away and then put it back in. I see it here, so I'm gonna have a look at the recording after. Hopefully it's just on your side, Gaurav. I'm hoping it's working, because I see everything here, yeah. So if not, I will link it. If I check the video and I see it's not visible there either, I'm gonna link it under. Maybe the letters are a bit too small, yeah, but you can make it bigger later from the replay, or you can download it. I really recommend it. It's available at kompetansenorge.no. All right. So I was saying, when I have students for Norskprøve prep, the first thing I do with them, or one of the first things, is to go through this schema in detail, so that they know what to expect and they get a better picture of where they are as well. So if you have a look at it, you have again the under A2 category, you have A2, and you have B1. And one important thing to notice as well is what the categories where the crosses are put actually are. There are 7 categories in Norskprøve. This can be a little different in different proficiency exams. So every exam is a little different, but yeah. Oh, someone is writing, I tried on YouTube and Facebook, it's not visible. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna try, wait. I'm gonna try to take it away, because this is kind of important. Remove, and then what can we do with this? If I do like this. Okay, let me just fix, because you need to see this one. I'm not sure why it's not visible, but let's try in this way. Okay, and put it in. What about now, you guys? Let me know if you can see it now. I did it in a different way. Let me know. I'll try to carry on speaking. Now I shared it in a different way. So drop me a line if you can see the document now. All right. So there are 7 categories that you are being tested on. And that is the first 3, still the black screen and the small window with you in it. Oh my God, so sadly. If I take the full screen layout, can you see it now? Let me know. And I'll try to pull another trick with it. Let me see. Where did I put it? Here. If I open it as a normal PDF. That's my last trick, you guys. Let me see, what are you writing? Oh, perfect, that works. Okay, goody. Then no more tricks. Let me just do it this way. That's really weird. That's something technical with StreamYard. Sorry. but you can see it. That's very good. So you have these oppgave A, oppgave B, oppgave C. So these three categories, what they kind of are about is whether or not, or to what degree, you have answered the question. And this is so important. And I want to stop here for a bit, because I'm all around on Facebook in all these groups where people ask questions and share the questions that they got in Norskprøve and so on. And people would write things like, can somebody share the list of the synonyms for B1? And I'm like, no, don't do this, Or sometimes there are even some people offer maybe freebies of, use this template and you will pass. Well, maybe. And I think it's good to be working from templates when you are learning. But when what you do is kind of hang yourself in these formulations and you're like, I have to use this and it's gonna work. I have to use these words and I'm gonna pass. Then what might happen, and what sometimes happens, I've seen this as a censor myself, I didn't work at Norskprøve but different exams, is that the student has prepared so many things that they picked up wherever, that when they hear the question, they think the question is something that somebody else also got. They pull out all these pre-prepared formulations and they fail, not because the grammar was bad or anything, but because the communicative achievement on the task is low. And part of the reason for that is that typically people don't answer the question even, because they think that the question must be something because this other friend got it. And you know what? And this is so important, that if you don't do what the task says you have to do, and it's not like super strict, but you have to be doing what you were asked to do, you have to understand the question and answer properly. Or if it's oppgave B, then you have to communicate with the other person, and if you throw two parallel monologues, then it might be you might get the evaluation A2 on that pair task. And it's not because you didn't say all the super language that you read somewhere that you have to say, or you studied all the synonyms in the world and you put them in and all that stuff, and it's no use at all because you didn't complete the task. And these first three lines, and I cannot stress this enough, these are about your communicative achievement in the task. So you have to fulfill the task. So when I have students prepping for Norskprøve, this is what we mostly do the month before the exam. You cannot lift your grammar half a level in a short time, but you can really prep for the task for maths and knowing and expecting what kind of stuff you should do. Yeah, what is it actually that I'm being asked to do? Of course, in the exam, people might panic. You might get a partner who is at a very much lower level. You don't understand what they're trying to say. All that stuff happens and has happened in the past, right? But you can be ready for the tasks, what they are and what you have to do. This is very important because, like you see, it's almost half of all the evaluation. How well did you perform on the given task? How high did you achieve in terms of communication? You see that this is called formidlingskriterier at the top, the green line at the top. I'm going to show it. This formidlingskriterier. And formidling basically means communication, right? How well you got your point across. And also if it was the right point. If you speak off topic the whole time and answer a different question, that shows low communicative achievement. They will not obviously let you babble away on a different topic the whole time. They will return you back. But if they try to return you back a few times and you're still speaking the script that you have ready-made, then you're not gonna get the B1 that you wanted, right? The other four categories have with language to do, språklige kriterier, right? And these are four: flyt, uttale, ordforråd, grammatikk. So ordforråd means vocabulary, vocabulary range and precision. Uttale is pronunciation, right? Flyt is fluency. So fluency means speaking without stopping all the time. Fluency has nothing to do with correctness. That's also something that people don't know. People think that fluent means perfect. Yeah, like I want to get fluent, meaning I want to reach B2. This is not actually the case. I know many people who are perfectly fluent. They speak without stopping, but a lot of what they say is not very accurate. So they have problems with accuracy. So that would be the ordforråd grammatikk and partially uttale. Let me just show you the grammatic and read out for you what the criterion for this here is, right? So the yellow one is the A2 achievement, and in grammatic it says viser en del eksempler på riktig bruk av grunnleggende grammatiske strukturer. So shows some examples of correct usage of basic grammatical structures. And obviously it's very questionable what is or is not grundläggande grammatisk struktur, right? We can have a lot of discussions. Is this what's the most frequent? Is this what causes the most misunderstandings when used wrong? Is this the stuff that native speakers react most when they hear it used wrong? So, and this is not defined, obviously. And here is the danger that somebody might interpret this as what came early in the textbook is grundläggande. It's not, the correlation is not that clear, right? But this is what it says. So it's vague, but for a trained censor, they know, they have a lot of gut feeling for what this is, how a typical A2 looks. Yeah. Gjør mange feil, also helt elementære. So makes a lot of mistakes, including very basic ones. And if you have a look at this, if you've ever read an A2 textbook like På vei, you would know that if you covered all the grammar in the textbook, you would have ikke in the right place in subordinate clauses, for example. You would have all the stuff you would be nailing using possessives together with adjectives in bestemt form and things like that. All of that is covered already in the A2 textbook. If you covered all the grammar and all the vocabulary usage that you see in På vei, and if you got lucky, you might pass B2 with that knowledge, right? So it's not expected that people will cover and like really put in use everything that's in the book, yeah, especially the grammar. You might be lacking some vocabulary, but especially the grammar structures. If you were really nailing all of that, you would be a king in B2. Like, I'm serious here, yeah? So if you saw it in the textbook, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean it's elementär or not, right? And it definitely does not mean that you cannot pass A2 or B1 if you're not nailing like adjectives in bestemt form, right? Even though they are covered in like unit 14 or 15 of På vei, right? Okay, so that's that. And if we jump now to the B1 achievement, which is the green one here, so you want all the 7 crosses in here in the green section, right? If you're heading for B1. It says on the same category, on the grammar, in your speaking, har et ganske godt grep om grunnleggende grammatiske strukturer. So again, this is very vague. We can discuss for ages what grunnleggende grammatiske strukturer is, right? Like I was mentioning. And also, we can discuss forever what et ganske godt grep actually means, yeah? So ganske godt grep is like a relatively good command of the basic grammatical structures. So you see how vague this is. But if you have a look at, for example, descriptions for English certificates, which is the same, the A2 you get in your English exam is the same, should be the same kind of level of achievement as the A2 you get in your Norwegian exam, because this is a common European frame, yeah? It's called CFR, Common European Frame of Reference. So this should be the same across the board. If you read the descriptions for exams like Cambridge First or Cambridge Advanced, it's the same. It's vague like this because you can't really make it more specific, because you don't want to say the candidate has to know these words and these grammar bits, right? You cannot say that because it's a proficiency exam. That's the thing we were talking in the start. So it's always going to be like this. Viser noen eksempler på komplekse setninger. So show some examples of complex sentences. Complex means including leddsetninger. So you have to have things like som-setninger, hvis-setninger, når-setninger, this kind of stuff. If you speak kind of normally, then you will have this. It's very hard to speak without any use of complex sentences because we need this, right? Gjør en del feil, so makes some mistakes, and del is like some, a number of mistakes, og kan også gjøre noen feil som fører til misforståelser, særlig i komplekse strukturer. So look at this. Makes a number of mistakes, and maybe also makes some mistakes, not like very many, but some. And again, some is very vague, but everything in these descriptions is gonna be vague by definition. Some mistakes that lead to misunderstandings. And this is maybe unexpected, isn't it? That this is B1 level and people are stressing out about the grammar and doing grammar exercises. It's not like you can ditch the grammar completely. You have to show variation in all these grammar things, and you have to make yourself understood. And B1 is already an emerging independent level. So a level of independence is expected of you. But it's not like you have to nail all the grammar in Stein på Stein, not even in Povai, like I was saying before. You have to make sure that you are showing some command of it, that you can express yourself independently, and also that you're answering the questions. Very, very, very important that you are doing the task that you're asked to do, because 3 full categories that you get across on are on the communicative achievement. It's the communicative achievement is always super important. Yeah. And also the grammar, if it makes sense, if the censor is well trained, as they are in Norskprøve, what the criteria for example, the mistakes, right? What mistakes should I count as these are breaches of some grunnleggende regler, and these are okay? The criterion that people have with this is typically, and should be, how much this contributes to good communication or how much it hinders it. But you see that even in the B1 level, if you attempt more complex structures and you make mistakes which cause misunderstandings, meaning hinder communication, you can still get away with it if it's just a few here and there. If it's like 1 or 2, you're gonna get away with it if the rest is okay. Yeah. And of course, it's a complex picture, and you have the 7 crosses. In order to achieve the higher level, you need to get all 7 on the one side. So for example, if your grammar is great and your vocabulary is precise and broad and all that stuff, and then if you're doing task B, I'm gonna scroll it back there, oppgave B here, which is the samtale, and you don't even let your partner to speak, and you jump in their mouth and you just run over them because you have prepared so much good language, you're gonna get A2 on that one because you didn't achieve the communication, and the 1 cross in the A2 will drag you down and you won't get the B1 evaluation from the whole thing, right? So that's how it works. And of course, I'm making it a bit more acute now than it really is. I'm really like setter det på spissen, right? But in principle, it's like that. You need all 7 crosses in the right section. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna take this away. I'm gonna put myself to stage and maybe stop presenting. Oh my God, StreamYard has some problem today. I guess you can see me in a very small picture, right? You can let me know how you can see me. Yes, now, good. I think they are shifting some features. Sorry about the technical stuff. Okay, so now time for the questions. I have 10 minutes for the questions. If you have a question during the stream, or if the If going through the document made you think about various questions, put them down. Now is the good time. If I don't have time to tackle them here, I will tackle them later. I will write to you under the comment and tag you so that you get your answer. The question I got most of in my mailbox when I was inviting for that was actually a question that surprised me, because the question was, and this is a question that actually repeats quite a lot, it was a question that said, how do I pass? And I was really surprised by this question, because this is a question I cannot answer, can I? And I think everybody knows that, like, tell me how I pass is not the right kind of question. And I was really thinking about this. I want to tackle it here. And there is one thing I want to tell you about the exam prep, and that is agency. I talk about this a lot in my other live streams. You can scroll back, especially on YouTube. There will be some recordings where I speak about being the boss of your own process and about agency in language learning, which then contributes to your speaking, to your selvtillit. And I'm mixing languages terribly, to your self-confidence in speaking later on if you have a lot of agency. All of us should be practicing this. And looking for a teacher and asking, how do I pass the exam, is exactly a question that shows a low level of agency. And if you've been thinking of a question like that, I would love for you to rethink that. So that this is a bit of tough love here, isn't it? But if you say, like, help me pass the exam, I don't know what to do, that's not a good place to be. So I have a piece of advice that I think is very useful for everybody. We all are at different levels of agency with different things, but high agency will always help you pass the exam and be happy in life and all that stuff, right? So for me, with Norskprøve, high agency starts with going to the website of Kompetanse Norge, kompetansenorge.no, which is the provider in a way of the exam, and study in detail what they say. They put in all the information, and then I talk to people and nobody knows that, but it's all written there. They spell out everything. They give you examples of the different skills, like small tests that you can go through to see what it's like. They give you even like a placement test that you can attempt to see which level you probably are around. And they also have the schema I was just showing you. For most people, it's a new piece of document. They're like, oh my God, I never saw this. Teachers should be showing this on courses, shouldn't they? This is like lesson 1. If I was running a group course somewhere, the first lesson would be, let's go through the schema so that everybody is on the same page as to what are you tested on, what are the criteria, and what does the achievement at the level you want look like, yeah? And this is so important. And people tell me, where did you get this document from? Is it some kind of teacher secret document? And it's not. It's publicly available, and it's there. It's linked on the website of kompetansenorge.no. Go there, study it, and if you don't understand what some of the stuff means, that's a good thing to take to your teacher and ask about. Can you interpret these lines for me? Yeah, pick somebody who knows what testing is about, not somebody who will be just guessing. Yeah, so this is very important. And when you do just this, when you go through the website and when you try the trial tests, and when you have a look at the vurderingsskjema and figure out what the communicative achievement you want to achieve looks like, then you will have maybe 5-6 very concrete questions that you can bring maybe to me. You can ask on my page on Facebook, for example. That's just fine. You can write me an email if you're in my database and you get emails from me. I'll have a look at it, or I will write about it, right? And you can take them to your teacher if you have a private tutor or if you're attending a course. But the point is, if your question is, what do I do? Then nobody can help you, can they? Nobody can take you by the hand and be like, do this for 5 minutes, then da 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 da. right? It doesn't work. Somebody can prepare a lesson for you, but you need to be able to transfer the knowledge and insight from the lesson and use on your own anyways, right? So I really, really recommend doing all this and then making a list of very concrete questions, like in this task, when this happens, what should I do then? That's a question I can help very efficiently with, right? But I can't take you by the hand and be like, if you do all these things in this way, you will pass. Because maybe you will not. It's like the list of synonyms that everybody is sharing somewhere. And I know, I realize that the list of synonyms is for the reading test, but you learn this not by taking a random list of random synonyms from somebody. You learn this by drilling the exercise itself and making your own list on the stuff that you struggle with, right? And by the quantity, of course, because you cannot expect that the same words that you practiced will appear in the exam, because it's a proficiency exam. Yeah. So this is something very important that I got a lot of. Tell me how to pass. Yeah. It depends what your actual question is, what your actual issue is. Yeah. And you need to take agency about that. Okay, let's have this question before I jump off. James is writing. Oh, hello, James. Given that this is a proficiency test and not a progress test, so last-minute cramming is not so useful, are there any specific things that can help you get in the right mindset in the days leading up to the test? Yeah, that's a good one, because again, especially for the speaking, mindset is important. I would say that getting ready with somebody who knows what they are doing and can assess the level, so that you kind of know, okay, if I have a good day, I'm gonna pass. I might not pass if I have a bad day, or I'm kind of comfortably in that level, so I should pass unless my head explodes during the exam, right? That's one thing, having more clarity about where you are and what your chances are. And for me also, having practiced. Because what I do with my students when we have Norskprøve prep is we do the tasks, we simulate the tasks during our sessions, and they also get tasks as homework where they shoot me a video. And people are like, oh my God, so terrible. But then they do it and they learn a lot from it, also on tackling the stress and suddenly running out of ideas and sitting there with the emotion. That's also a very important part of the exam, isn't it? Having like a study technique, right? Oh, sorry, not a study technique, but a stress handling technique. Knowing that if I go blank during the exam, what's my move? And of course, it's worse during the exam than it is when you practice. But if you have the knowledge in yourself that, all right, this is what might happen, this is what probably will happen, because I know myself, this is what I will do if it happens. Yeah, I think that's very important. Also, listening to some Norwegian podcasts or movies, something you really like the night before and on the way to the exam. Definitely don't study synonyms on your way to the exam. Flood yourself with the sound of Norwegian. Listen to something you like, even if it was music. That puts you in the right state of mind and primes you. It's part of the reason why I speak so bad English today and keep mixing with Norwegian words, partially because I was reading Norwegian, but also because I was listening to a Norwegian podcast on the way here, which was a bad idea in retrospect. Should have taken an English one, right, to prime myself. So it really works if you prime yourself like that, especially for the speaking. Yeah. Okay, something else. Yeah, and also I was gonna say, for the studying, I do recommend working with somebody who knows what they're doing. That's one thing. But for your independent work, I do recommend buying access to a platform like, say, Norsk Club, which has these exam format exercises. But all these other platforms also, if you have something like Steinpostein online or Bazaar is a nice one. The exercises are in a similar format anyway. Norsk Club is directed towards Norskprøve explicitly, and the other ones are not, but the exercise formats are similar and the topics are the stuff they like anyhow, right? So I do recommend spending those 150 kroner. Now it's like they got more expensive after the new year, so now it's 155, but it's a year-long access, or it's access from when you buy until the end of August, but still like 155 kroner is a good price, I think, for what you get inside. And in my view, and from my experience with my students and also with myself prepping for stuff, doing a lot of these exercises in bulk teaches you more vocabulary, for example, than sitting and cramming any lists, especially if you were not the one who put the list together, right? That's a big problem. If you just take a list from somebody and you're like, thank you, now I'm saved. Well, maybe it's gonna be of help. Maybe it's just gonna cost you a lot of time and frustration, and you won't be able to transfer this stuff that well because it's not your own, right? And you don't know how it fits in. And proficiency testing is all about how does it fit in, right? It's not like write one sentence, it's write a text which has a certain function. All these texts you have to write in the writing, apart from the terrible picture description, which, okay, well, it's there, but all the higher levels, all these texts are texts with a purpose that you have to achieve some communicative point always. So yeah, I think that's the last word. If you want to practice for the exam, I do recommend investing a few kroner into a platform like Norsk Club and just doing all the exercises several times. And for the mindset specifically, I do recommend knowing where you are, knowing you have some strategies in place that you will employ if you go blank, if you get stressed, if this or that happens, and playing Norwegian music or a Norwegian podcast the day before and on your way to the exam. Yeah. Okay, all right, you guys. Thanks for being here live with me. And greetings to all of you watching this from the replay as well. If you come up with any additional questions, let me know under. I have to jump off now, but hopefully this was useful and insightful for you. And do let me know as well if you're heading for Norskprøve anytime soon and what it is otherwise that you would need to know. Yes, that's it. Ha det bra, kos dere masse, and see you next week.